Hello, everyone. This is Tom Brew, your publisher at Fastball on Fan Nation on our Sports Illustrated network on SI, and happy to be back for a 2025 baseball season. We got a lot of changes going on this year, a lot of really good stuff that we got planned on Fastball. And one of the things we really wanted to do this year was to have more people with more opinions and to have columnists around the country covering baseball with all 30 teams, and happy to do that this year with bringing on some people to make that happen. And so this is podcast number one of what's going to be a weekly show on the Payoff Pitch podcast on Fastball. And we're going to be touring the country all year long with both myself and Brady Farkas there on your right, who's been with us for about, was it 3 years now, Brady? Is that right? We're up on 3 years already. And he's been the lead writer on Fastball for a long time. And now with our SI edition, he also co-owns the Seattle Mariners site with us, and been a Mariners fan since before birth, probably, and knows the AL West and the NL West well. And then happy in the middle to introduce baseball fans to Jack Ankony. Jack has been part of my team covering Indiana University college basketball and college football the last 3 years, and we've brought back Jack over to our baseball team. He's going to be based in Chicago doing the White Sox, but Jack's also going to be our national baseball columnist here on Fastball, covering the NL and AL Central teams. And, of course, me for 2025, based back down in the Tampa Bay area. I'll be doing the AL East and the AL West from there, and a lot of race content, of course, but a lot of AL East stuff, and then a lot of travel to what should be a great National League East race this year, too, with the Mets and the Braves and the Phillies, all just really interesting teams, and even the Nats going to be interesting to me to watch. So I want to introduce everyone to these two guys, and again, guys, welcome to the very first Payoff Pitch podcast of 2025.
We're back. Let's do it.
Yeah, excited for baseball season.
Yeah, me too. It's I think it's just going to be the last, I don't know, I guess the last 10 or 12 years of baseball to me have just been incredible, because there are no guaranteed storylines that just sort of fit the bill. Like, we never have repeat champions in the sport anymore. And this year, though, it seems like maybe we might. I mean, the Dodgers won the World Series last year, and then went out and spent basically another $1 billion over the winter to put together a powerhouse team. And, so everybody's going to be looking for the Dodgers. They have had the advantage, of course, of playing 2 games in Tokyo already, beat the Cubs twice in Tokyo, and looked very good doing it. And so I think, Brady, I think that's sort of the main storyline coming in is, are the Dodgers the best team for sure? And, can anybody catch them?
Are the Dodgers the best team for sure? Can anybody catch them? And are they good or bad for the sport? Those are the 3 things really to talk about when it comes to the Dodgers, because so many fans are pumped by what they're doing, and so many fans are resentful of what they're doing as well. Financially, they have a wherewithal that not other teams have. They certainly use it to their advantage. And when you look at the roster they've compiled, they are the most talented team in baseball on paper, and they would be the odds-on betting favorite again to win the World Series. So we will see where it goes. Injuries can derail everything. A team can certainly get hot in October. I think all of the best teams in baseball reside in the National League, so there certainly is competition, but the Dodgers are certainly the team at the outset.
Yeah, I certainly agree with you there. That from what we see so far, that they're going to be the team to beat for sure. But let's stay in to start all this. Let's stay in the NL West a little bit, Brady, and kind of break that down with people a little bit. Now, obviously, the Dodgers with their spending spree, I don't feel like they have any weaknesses. They brought in more starting pitching, and they have plenty of it. They brought in more relievers and have a great closer now. My only concern is that, maybe will there be times they don't hit enough? And, so maybe if you would sort of address that, and then let's talk a little bit about the other teams in that division that might at least give them a battle.
Look, the Dodgers, I think there are no weaknesses on paper. Okay, I think there are no weaknesses on paper. Injuries and complacency are the only things that can derail a team this good. And those are real things. Those are real concerns, right? Are they bored by the chase of the regular season, and do they slip up, and do they get hurt? Those are the only things that are going to derail the Dodgers, I think. But again, those are real concerns. you look at their lineup, it's just so deep, right? It's Ohtani, it's Betts, it's Freeman, it's 3 MVPs there. They add Michael Conforto. They lock up Tommy Edman now long-term. They have him for a full season. Bring back Teoscar Hernandez. Will Smith is an all-star catcher who's going to be hitting 7th or so in the lineup. I mean, they are just relentless offensively. That said, I do think that the NL West is one of the deeper divisions in baseball, and it will be competitive on a night-to-night basis, right? You look at the Padres, they're a team that's spent a bunch over the last several years. They remain very, very interesting. They didn't trade Dylan Cease in the offseason, so you bring him back to a really good starter in Michael King. I believe both those guys are in contract years, so they're certainly motivated in addition to being good. They have a very good kind of unheralded or unknown bullpen, even after getting rid of Josh Hader a couple of seasons ago. The Diamondbacks were already good. They made the World Series in 2023, underwhelmed in 2024. They go out and bring in Corbin Burns, a Cy Young winner out of the National League. So they've got one of the top pitchers in baseball, in addition now to a roster that got to the World Series just 2 years ago. Corbin Carroll was down a lot of last year. If he refigures it out this year, I mean, that's like inserting an MVP caliber player into your lineup that wasn't there for at least half the year last year. So I think the Diamondbacks and Padres are both playoff caliber teams, and the Giants are a team that should be a playoff caliber team, right? They go out and add Willie Adames. They had Jung-Hoo Lee, who they brought in last year, who missed most of the season with injury. Bob Melvin now in year 2. I know they lose Snell, but they have a fairly decent rotation all across the board, led by Logan Webb. And then there's the Rockies, who suit up as a Major League Baseball team.
That's exactly right. There is we'll get to that in a few other divisions as well, but certainly the Rockies are they are the 5th of 5 in that division for sure. One last question on the NL West, Brady, then we'll jump to Jack in the NL Central. But so the record for all-time wins, as you know, is 116, and this Dodgers team, loaded the way it is, there are a lot of people who think they can threaten that this year. Now, to me, I think based a lot on what you just said, that the Padres are really good, the Diamondbacks are really good, the Giants always play the Dodgers tough. I mean, I think them getting to 117 is a bit of a reach. What's your take on them possibly threatening that all-time wins record?
I think they can threaten it. I'm not saying they're going to do it, but I think they're going to be – I think this is a 108-win team at least. So if you could be a 108-win team, you could be a 118-win team, depending on how the ball bounces. I think the question will come out to, do they want to go after it, right? Because if you're in the neighborhood to win that many games, chances are you have a hefty division lead. And if you do you pull back the reins a little bit at the end of the year? Given the injury concerns that they've had, especially in the rotation last year, will they really be gung-ho and going for it, or will they kind of ease into the end of the season? Now, we think the division's pretty good, as I just outlined, so maybe they don't run away with it and they're kind of forced to play it straight all the way through. I think they can challenge for it. I would not be shocked if they got it, but I don't think it's a guarantee.
Yep, absolutely. I agree with 100%. Well, let's switch over to the NL Central real quick. It's a race that I think will be maybe even more interesting as to who wins it. But I think that's mostly because you've got a lot of slightly above average teams in the NL Central. And Jack, we've already had a chance to see the Cubs a couple of days. There are a lot of people hand raised who think the Cubs can win the NL Central this year. But they obviously lost twice to the Dodgers out there, and certainly no shame in that. But your first year back in Chicago, I'm sure you're excited for what this National League Central race is going to look like.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I wouldn't panic too much about the 2 early season losses in Japan, to the Dodgers and stuff. I still think the Cubs would be my favorite in the NL Central. They make the addition to go out and get Kyle Tucker, a potential MVP candidate, reinforce the bullpen, added a starter in Matthew Boyd. So I would have them as the favorite, but I do think they left a little bit on the table out there. They were kind of in some talks to add another, ace or number 2 pitcher and didn't do that. They're going to be relying on a good amount of young players like Matt Shaw, Michael Busch, Pete Crow Armstrong. So I think they kind of established themselves as the favorite, but they didn't go maybe all in to really make themselves a dominant team, because you also still have some teams in that division, like the Brewers, always seem to figure it out, even though they lost guys like Devin Williams, and they have a really great young player in Jackson Churio coming up. The Cardinals really didn't do a whole lot in the division, so I don't really expect them to compete, but I don't think they're going to just completely bottom out. I think the Reds, with getting Terry Francona, one of the best managers in recent history, that'll help them with a lot of the young guys they have. And then the Pirates, they've got a bunch of great young pitchers with Skeens and Jared Jones. So I sort of see the Cubs as a favorite, but not overwhelming. And the four teams behind them, I think all will be fairly competitive, and won't just be pushovers in that division whatsoever.
Yeah, the Brewers have won the division last year. Have won 3 of the last 4, I believe. They always seem to find a way, and I think it's a well-run organization. Do you look at them as being the team to beat, though? And because I feel like, I mean, I don't know what the Cardinals are doing. I really don't. I mean, it's for a team that for 50 years has always made sure they were in the mix no matter what. I just don't think it's a very good Cardinals team at all, and they've made some payroll dumps already. There's probably more to do, and they don't have the greatest of. There's no core group of 5 or 6 great guys at AAA to build on next. I don't see them there, and then the Reds are the Reds. They've got some good young talent, and then the Pirates have that pitching. And I really thought the Pirates might have been a little bit more aggressive in the offseason too, just to add a couple more bats. But I don't know. It just seems like. I wouldn't be a bit surprised if we show up at the All-Star break with all 5 of these teams within 5 games of each other.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. And we've sort of done this with the Brewers the last few off seasons, where it's like, okay, they lose Josh Hader, they might fall off a little. Okay, they lose Corbin Burns, they might fall off a little. Brandon Woodruff's hurt, they might fall off. But they always sort of seem to find a way, especially with their pitching staff, to find guys and really maximize that. Christian Yelich sort of had that bounce back season last year, and I mentioned Jackson Churio earlier. So from you look on paper and you say, like, a team like the Cubs, might be the favorite over the Brewers, but they've been sort of the class of that division the last 3 or 4 years, and certainly have to be taken away from that, or unseated from that throne, before you can really say that another team has taken over that division. You're right about the Cardinals. I mean, it was kind of surprising to see them really just do nothing this offseason. So I don't really see them as a huge contender, but the Reds with Francona and a lot of their young talent, I think, can push it. And it'll be interesting to see, like, when you get into July, I expect this division to be close, and then it could come down to, which front office pushes the right buttons at the trade deadline, to kind of create that separation.
Yep, I agree. It's going to be, like I said, we're talking in the NL West of the Dodgers, winning 108, 110, whatever. I mean, I think first to 90 in the NL Central probably gets it. And I wouldn't be a bit surprised if it's someone with 87, 88 wins or whatever gets there. And if I see more than one team in the playoffs out of the National League Central, I'll be a little bit surprised. Well, all right, let's swing over to the National League East. I'm looking forward to, with my first full season back doing baseball in a couple of years, to really watch this race closely. And then certainly, Brady, I'm going to want you to add into, since you've been paying good attention to all these teams over the winter. But obviously the big news was the New York Mets signing Juan Soto, and then in keeping some pieces together to make a run, where much like the Dodgers, money is no object with the Mets, and they went out and spent it, and should be, you would think, with all that, with Juan Soto, just sort of the preeminent hitter in the game today, with him there and a pretty good pitching staff and hitters, that you would like to think that maybe they're the team to beat, but the Phillies are still really, really good, and the Braves, I think, kind of fell off the map a little bit last year because of all the injuries, which, injuries are part of the game, but they had way more than their share of injuries last year, especially to their biggest names. So I'm really looking forward to a 3-team race there, and it's been an interesting offseason with all 3 of them, and I can't wait to get that started. And I think from a 3-team race, and I think every one of those head-to-head matchups all year long between Phillies, Braves, and Mets are going to sort of be epic games, as even in the April and May and June meetings. And I think it should be a heck of a race, Brady, don't you think?
Oh, definitely will be. That, again, is one of the deepest divisions in baseball, right up there with the AL East and the NL West. And that you have 3 teams that will compete for playoff berths. And all 3 of those teams, I think, have World Series aspirations as well. All 3 of those teams could be teams that could unseat the Dodgers if anyone is going to do it. So I look at the Braves as the favorite. If they can weather April, I just think they're the best team, right? Spencer Strider is going to be back mid to late April, earlier than we thought. Ronald Ancuna is going to be back early to mid-May, earlier than we thought. So if they can weather April and stay within shouting distance through the first month of the season, I think they are primed for a big last 5 months or so, right? Look, they lost Ozzie Albies, Austin Riley, Ancuna, and Strider for big or all of the season, big portions or all of the season. Last year, they lost Ronaldo Lopez for a period as well. All of those guys will be back. So presuming good health for those players, I think the Braves are excellent. They go out and add Jurickson Profar in the offseason, who was an all-star. So I think the Braves are really, really good. I think the Phillies are still really, really good as well. They won the division, but I do worry about age and injury possibility with them, right? There's nothing, this is more speculative than anything, but Bryce Harper in his 30s now. Kyle Schwarber, aging. I mean, how long can Aaron Nola and Zach Wheeler stay this good and this healthy? We've already seen Ranger Suarez go on the injured list. They get Luzardo from the Marlins. He's been off injured the last few years as well. So I wonder if the injury bug might not get them at some point. So and the injury bug's already gotten the Mets. You talk about needing to weather April. They need to weather April as well. Sean Manaea's out. Frankie Montas is out. So offense looks good with Soto, Alonso, Lindor, Vientos. That looks good. But you have a team that, got to the NLCS last year, but several pitchers injured. Jose Quintana gone. I don't know what to make of their pitching, especially early.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think, and looking real hard at that division, for Wednesday, I'll do my annual 3 up, 3 down column where I look at the projected win totals for teams and try to pick 3 teams that I think will go over and 3 that will go under. And as much as I love the Phillies and have for a long, long time, I've been looking hard at them at the under because I'm a little worried that what might happen to the Braves last year could very well cycle around to happen to the Phillies this year. Like you mentioned, that's a roster that's getting very old, and they've stayed relatively healthy the last handful of years for the most part, where I could see a lot of that going on there, and that could be the thing. And like you say with the Braves having to weather, the early part of the season without Strider and Ancuna, I mean, look at this Braves schedule to open the season. They start with 4 games against the Padres, and then 3 more against the Dodgers just in the first week of the season. I mean, that is you probably for a team that does spring training in Florida, I'm not sure you can have a more difficult first week of the season than 4 in San Diego and 3 against the Dodgers. And then they have a big series early with the Phillies. They have a series on the road in Tampa Bay with a team that I think is much improved. And then they get at the end of the month, they have to go back out west with a trip, to Arizona and Colorado. And then first series in May is against the Dodgers at home. I mean, that is, to me, a brutal stretch. And, what if the Braves are 8-12 in the first 20 or 7-13? I know it's, baseball is the ultimate marathon, but it's, like you said, it's, for 3 teams that I think are very, very, very good, potentially, I think there's concerns about all 3 of them. Jack, you got any opinions on the NL East teams? I know you've been paying attention to them as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that'll be a fun division. You just look at those lineups with the Braves and Phillies, and that's always going to be tough. So I think it sort of comes down to me to pitching, and I might give the Phillies a little bit of a nod there, although they kind of had, some of their bullpen guys poach with like Jeff Hoffman, but at the same time, the Braves lost Max Fried. So I might give the Phillies a little bit of an edge there. And, Brady mentioned some of the injuries with the Mets too. But I've always liked that Phillies team just because I think that lineup is so tough and so deep.
Yep, I agree with you 100%. All right, let's switch over to the American League real quick, and we'll kind of snake our way back. We'll start with the AL East. It's that's for me, my home division. Based in Tampa, I see a lot of all those AL East teams all the time. Brady, living in New York and having done radio in New England for the last several years, very familiar with all that goes on there as well too. I think this also is going to be a terrific race, and mostly because I'm trying to use a little bit of that logic that's played out both in the NFL and Major League Baseball for years. Is that team that loses the World Series kind of seems to take a fallback the following year, and I can absolutely see that with the Yankees. I mean, losing Juan Soto, I think, is huge for a lineup that really wasn't all that great last year anyway. Got hot in sort of September and then hit in the playoffs, but they weren't very good all year. And now without Soto and not really replacing him to that level at all, I think their hitting is falling apart. They've already lost Garrett Cole, Luis Gil, already injured too. I just really question, how good they're, even with Max Fried there now, I question how deep their starting rotation will be. I have concerns about their bullpen. I think there's a big drop off there, and I think it opens it up for that division to be very competitive. I think in the offseason, the Red Sox have made some moves. Now, can they have those moves generated enough to get them all the way to contend for an AL East title? I think if the Yankees fall far enough back, I think the Red Sox can be in it. And of course, I know local bias here with paying attention to the Rays. With the exception of this recent hiccup with Shane McClanahan, a little bit of a tricep thing where he's going to start the season on the IL. It doesn't sound like he's going to be out for long. And I love the Rays starting pitching. I think they have the best rotation in baseball. They still have a terrific bullpen. And I think last year was a little bit of an anomaly in that they didn't hit at all. Junior Caminero, I think, is going to just be a stud in his first full year. I think the Red Sox and the Rays have a legitimate chance of winning this division, and it's hard to rule out the Orioles still too with that lineup. Now, I think the Orioles pitching is just, I don't think to me, when you have that kind of lineup like they have and superstars in Rutschman and Henderson and all that, you got to go out and you got to put together a complete 25-man roster to win a World Series this year. And the Orioles didn't do that. So I just don't know, I have a real hard time picking the Orioles to win that division for sure. And I think the Red Sox and the Rays have just as good a chance of anyone to win that division. Brady, what do you think?
I think the Red Sox are going to win the division. I think the Red Sox are going to get to the World Series. I think that the Red Sox are that good. I think they have done enough. You go out and bring in Garrett Crochet, an all-star, Walker Buehler, a guy who's won 2 World Series. You bring in Alex Bregman, who solidifies that lineup and lengthens it even further. And then you add to the bullpen, you bring in Aroldis Chapman, you get a healthy Liam Hendricks, and you get Justin Wilson in there as well. I just think this Red Sox team is loaded at every front, right? They have the offense. I think they have the rotation. I think they have the rotation depth they haven't had in years as well. And they've got the best farm system in baseball by several metrics. They have 3 top 10 prospects, all of which are expected to debut this year. Christian Campbell, who made the team on opening day. Look, every team, for the most part, has some uncertainty. And the Red Sox is, I would say, health in the rotation, right? Crochet and Buehler come with a degree of risk. But if that risk pays off, I think they win the division. I think they get to the World Series.
Yep, I agree with you. I think they're going to be fun to watch. I mean, it's obviously there's always plenty of eyeballs, both locally, regionally, and nationally on the American League East every year anyway. But I certainly think that'll be the case. And much like we talked about with some of those other divisions about those head-to-head matchups, even during the course of the year, I think there will be certainly just a little bit more intensity added to all of this, because I think, the way I look at this AL East is you just don't want to be that team that gets buried. You don't want to be that team that goes on some 4-12 run or something and fall way behind, because I think it is going to be a tough division to try to catch up and make a lot of ground in if it comes to that. So, all right, let's switch over to the American League Central. And, Jack, we're welcoming you to Chicago for that. And we're glad to have you as a national baseball columnist, on Fastball here. But your everyday job is going to be to cover the Chicago White Sox that won 41 games this past year and are only projected to win 54. And there's a lot of people who think if they can make it to 54, that'd be a miracle. So while you're here, just real quick, just sort of weigh in on your excitement level for just at least being at the ballpark every day with the White Sox, and then we'll dive into the division itself.
Yeah, I mean, I know the White Sox aren't projected to be a very strong team this year, and I do think even that 54 might be tough to get to. But no, I'm just super excited to get the chance to cover an MLB team, and in the city where I grew up by. And so I'm thrilled for the opportunity, and I think it'll be fun to tell the stories and of just what do you do after the year that you lose 121 games, the most in the modern era. I think that's an interesting storyline. How do you bounce back from that? They got a lot of new players, new manager. So, I know that there might not be a whole lot of wins in store, but I'm still really excited to dive in and cover this team.
Yep, absolutely. And we're glad to have you there too. And certainly just, after spending 3 years with you, covering college basketball and football at Indiana, I'm just really thrilled to have you as part of this team. So the rest of this division, I was when I was looking to do my over-under things, when I picked up the FanDuel over and under numbers, and I wrote them all down for the American League Central and those other 4 teams. I mean, the Tigers that surprised last year and made the playoffs, the Tigers, the Royals, the Guardians, the Twins, their win-loss totals were all within 1 game of each other. Now, you talk about, projecting a really good race all season long. When you've got 4 teams, much like the NL Central, but maybe even a step less. Maybe, I don't know, maybe not. I don't know. It's but same thing. It's a division where 87, 88 wins might win it, but you could very well have, 4 teams within a handful of games of each other, heading into the last couple of weeks of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is pretty similar to the NL Central in that respect. I think it's going to be a really exciting division race to track. It was funny, kind of like last year, no one really expected many of the AL Central teams to really be, big threats, but they end up getting 3 teams in the playoffs. And, the Tigers beat the Astros, the Royals beat the Orioles. You had the Guardians then make it to the ALCS. So the division ended up, having I think more success than a lot of people thought. And I see it being pretty similar this year. I don't expect anyone to be in that 95 win range, but I think it will be very competitive. If I were to place a favorite now, I think I like the Twins just because of their pitching with Bailey Ober and Pablo Lopez and Joe Ryan. You got Duran closing out games. I think that kind of gives them maybe a little bit of an edge. If those guys can stay healthy and you have that, that top 3 with a dominant closer, I think that kind of sets them up maybe for long-term success if everything works out with those guys.
Yep, absolutely. I think it's certainly going to be a fun race to watch all year long. And of course, I think last year a lot of people just sort of paid attention of making sure those teams in the race, that every time they played the White Sox, they got their sweeps and stuff like that. Because the White Sox were so bad that they lost. I think they won 10 division games all year. That was it. I hope
Something like that.
it was, so they, those other teams sort of feasted on the White Sox, and it'll be, interesting to see how that goes going forward. But certainly will be a fun race. All right, let's wrap it up, Brady, with the American League West, the division you certainly know well. Like as I told the followers earlier today, you and I co-own the Seattle Mariners site together, and you covered that team closely with Taryn co-watch and that, and you're on your way to Seattle tomorrow for the opening series of the season. And so why don't you kind of weigh in a little bit on kind of where you think the Mariners fall in the NL West right now, and then let's break down that division real well too. So.
I think the Mariners are going to win the division. I don't know that they necessarily deserve to based on what they didn't do this offseason, but I think they're going to win the division. And I think the starting pitching is that good. I think the offense is better than a lot of people think that it is. I still don't know that it's great, but if they can be somewhere in the 15 to 18 range offensively instead of the 22 to 26 range, I think that is an immense improvement. I'm a believer in the year 2 bounce back for Arozarena and Jorge Polanco and Mitch Garver. And I'm a believer that the division is not as good as it once was, right? The Astros have clearly taken a step back. Now, it doesn't mean they can't win the division, but they've lost Bregman, Verlander, and Kyle Tucker. They still have multiple pitchers on the injured list, including Garcia and Christian Garcia. They've lost Hector Neris in the bullpen, Ryan Presley in the bullpen. So I think the division is there for the taking. The question is just, can the Mariners take it, right? The whole offseason scuttle was about what they were unwilling to spend, and frankly, it was embarrassing, right? They should have been a player for Bregman. They should have been a player for Pete Alonso, and they weren't. But I still think that this roster is good enough to win the division. They won 85 games last year, and with a full season of Victor Robles and a full season of Randy Arozarena and a bounce back from Polanco and Garver, I think they're good enough. Now, I don't think this division is loaded. I think 87, 88 wins will win this division, but I think this division is clearly the wild card, or the third division winner in the playoff picture, not getting the bye, but I think the Mariners win it.
Yep, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I had an argument, a friendly, baseball, over beers argument that I thought if you took the top 4 teams in the National League or the American League Central and match them up with the top 4 teams in the American League West, that the Central's better. So I think the AL West, can very well be something like that too, where it's not, like you said, Brady, it's not what it used to be. I mean, the Astros have really, really fallen back, and I think they are relying on some young players who kind of. Especially those young pitchers on the Astros that had to play last year. They're relying on them to be really good this year, and we don't know that yet if they're going to be. And I think the Rangers, after winning a World Series in 23, were a big disappointment last year. They've got stars on the team, no question, but they've got holes galore. And I just and the rest of it, I just don't see. I mean, I see the Mariners as being the best team primarily because, as someone who loves pitching like I do, when I talk about every time I mention the Rays, I think you have the best starting rotation in baseball. I always catch myself by saying, it's the Mariners. They have the best rotation in baseball because they're just literally that good. They trot out 5 guys every game, 5 nights in a row that are all very capable of throwing a 2-hitter if they need to. It can happen. So I think as long as that Mariners rotation stays healthy, they're going to be tough to beat there. And Brady, I know you follow that team so closely too, but last year they won 85 games and they had probably at least 10 more where they had a couple runners on base in the 9th inning and just couldn't get a hit, or a couple runners on base in the 8th inning and just couldn't get a big hit. They went through a long stretch last year where they were in games all the time, had ducks on the pond and just could not get them in, where they lost a lot of one-run games just simply by not being able to get a clutch hit. And to me, that's always cyclical too. And I agree with you on bounce back years for guys. I think the Mariners offensively, even though their numbers may not spike wildly in regards to average or home runs or things like that, or even just total runs scored, I think it might be a better situational hitting team this year where they win maybe 5 more games than they lost last year simply by getting a big hit late.
Yeah, I think Dan Wilson in his first full year as manager has really kind of implemented an old school approach offensively. We saw that firsthand in spring training in Peoria, right? Get them on, get them over, get them in, I think is a Mariners mantra this year. I think they're playing for that next 90 feet Dan Wilson keeps talking about. And I think you will see they're going to steal a lot of bases. I think you might see some bunting, some hit and running. They're going to be more aggressive on the bases. Last year, they were dead last in the league in sack flies, and I know that's a stat that no one cares about, but you think of all the times that a sack fly would have done a lot of good. I think they've hit them in the spring. I think they've been aggressive on the bases to put themselves in position for that to matter, running first to third so that a fly ball can score a guy. It's some people call it old school, other people just call it baseball, but I think Dan Wilson is bringing that kind of back to the forefront this year.
Yep. All right. Well, push comes to shove now, Brady. I think you've already hinted at it, but let's make our picks for the season. And Brady, let's start with the American League. Give me your American League pennant winner and your division champs and our playoff teams.
Mariners, AL West. Royals, AL Central. Red Sox, AL East. Red Sox, World Series.
All right. And National League?
Dodgers, NL West. Reds, NL Central. Braves, NL East. Braves, World Series. Braves over Red Sox.
There you go. That would be certainly a fun thing to watch for sure. All right, Jack, I know you've been on the baseball beat for 36 hours at the moment, but go ahead and weigh in on how you think these playoff races will come out.
Yeah, well, I've been paying attention all off season still, but I got you.
I know you have. I know how big of a baseball fan you are.
I like Brady's pick with the Red Sox. I'll go there. I mentioned the Twins earlier. I think the Mariners too with their pitching gets that division done. I like the Phillies with their lineup in the NL East. I think the Cubs get it done in the NL Central, and I don't see anyone catching the Dodgers in the West. So I'll go Dodgers over a wild card team. I'll go the Rangers get hot in the playoffs with all their stars. I think maybe they lose the division, but then I think they do have the firepower to get hot in the playoffs again. So I'll go Dodgers, and then a little bit more of an upset over the Rangers in the World Series.
There you go. I get that. Well, I think it's no brainer. Obviously, the Dodgers are the class of the NL West, and I see them winning that again too. I do partly like the Cubs to do it. Every time I think the Cubs are going to win a division, and I pick them to win a division in March or April, it's something usually goes wrong. But I do like that team. I just I think the Brewers will take a little bit of a step back, and the Cubs win that. And then the NL East, like we mentioned, we were breaking it down. Man, I feel like the Braves, once they get everybody healthy, are a team that might go 21-6 in June or 21-7 in July, those type of things, and just really take over. I'm still concerned about the Mets losing as many people as they have. So I'm taking Dodgers, Phillies, NLCS. I think the Dodgers win. Although I tell you what, if the Padres stay healthy, you put them in a wild card situation like they've done the last few years. I think in a playoff series, the team that has the best chance of beating the Dodgers is the Padres, but I don't think they do it. I'll take the Dodgers to win the National League West. I will take the National League pennant. I'll take the Dodgers to win a World Series and repeat as well, because I think I think I'd put 5 teams in the National League ahead of any team in the American League right now. So that's the way I look at it. I think the AL Central wide open. I think the Guardians are going to surprise some people. I think I don't know why. I love Jose Ramirez in the clutch and every game. I think it's close division. I think I'm going to take the Guardians as a little bit of a shock there. And then here's my AL East shocker. I think I love a good story, and the Tampa Bay Rays literally got blown out of their home stadium by 2 hurricanes last September. They're playing outdoors in a minor league stadium in Tampa. It would be nothing better than to see some sort of magical run for that team. So I think they're going to win the AL East. I think they're going to make the playoffs. And then I'm sticking with you, Brady. I think the Mariners really are the best team in the American League West. If that rotation stays healthy, I can see them rolling through it. And if that rotation is healthy in the playoffs, I'm taking them. So I am taking Dodgers, Mariners, World Series, and it's good for business, right, Brady? Dodgers, Mariners, World Series would be incredible. But I'm taking the Dodgers to repeat. We haven't had repeat winners in baseball for years, so taking the Dodgers to repeat. So it's certainly will be fun. So, and last order of business, let's bring in Brandon Brown to the Payoff Pitch podcast. I want to introduce him to everyone. Brandon's been an on SI publisher and been part of our group at Sports Illustrated for many, many years. And we brought Brandon over last fall, and he handles for my 8 sites, handles all of our video and podcast work. And Brandon, going forward, will be the host of the Payoff Pitch podcast every week. And then the 3 of us will probably be on with Brandon most every week. But if conflicts arise, Brandon will be the 2 of us. So Brandon, we want to jump in and introduce everyone to you. And you're a Detroit area native, and you've been around baseball a long time too. So I'm sure you're looking forward to talking baseball with us all summer long too.
I'll tell you what, I am looking forward to getting a master class from you guys. That's what I think. Just listening to you guys talk this whole time, I'm ready to step up my game. I'm ready to be a little bit more locked in. I'm a Tigers guy through and through, have been my whole life. Obviously, they haven't won a World Series since the year I was born, 1984, but I didn't hear a lot of love for the Tigers, so, I'll try to get over that. And, I'm really looking forward to it. Baseball, that's the first sport I ever played in my entire life. So I have like an affinity for it, kind of a nostalgic love for the game, even though it's not one that I've been as locked in with just in my personal life or in my professional life. Being the publisher for Michigan, it was, football 24/7. Obviously, March Madness, we're in the thick of that right now. So baseball, it's kind of been on the back burner for me a little bit, but I'm excited to kind of dive into that a little bit more. And I mean, like I said, listening to you guys talk, I'm dealing with 3 pros here, so I'm very eager to learn more and kind of dive into it with you guys. So yeah, looking really forward to it.
Well, Brandon, I think Jack and Brady and I will all agree that even though Brady picked the Royals and Jack picked the Twins and I picked the Guardians, I think all 3 of us would agree that if the Tigers won the division, we really wouldn't be all that surprised. Is that fair to say, guys?
Yeah,
fair to
I
say.
think so.
We'll see if that magical run that that mojo, whatever they found and figured out last year to get into the playoffs, if they can just stretch that out a little bit over a handful of months of the season, who knows? But yeah, I think that does feel like a really tight division. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. And I'm hearing some of the names you guys are throwing out too. Like I know Bregman was all over the map for the Tigers, and he even thought that's where he was going, and then he didn't. And diehard Tigers fans are still pretty upset that their team isn't all that different from last year, and they just signed a couple old dudes, and they're like, what are they doing over there? But we'll see, man. I'm looking forward to it, and it's right around the corner.
We're obviously the Dodgers and the Cubs played a couple games already, but the true opening day is Thursday. I think all of us are excited about that. We'll have Brady will be in the ballpark in Seattle with Taryn Koach covering the Mariners live and running a lot of fastball content. And Jack will be in the ballpark in Chicago when the White Sox open up on Thursday at home as well too. And we'll all be out on the road. Jack will actually see you, Brandon, in Detroit in a couple of weeks, and Brady will be to Fenway at the end of the month. And I obviously have got a couple more weeks of college basketball to finish up, and then I'm looking forward to watching outdoor baseball in Tampa as well, and seeing a parade of NL East and ALT East teams coming through there. I've looked at the calendar already. Got working out a Baltimore trip and a Boston trip and a Philadelphia trip in May and June as well. And we're really looking forward to making this next step with our fastball on SI side of being out of the ballpark more and having national voices talking about the entire league. So, guys, thanks for being a part of the very first Payoff Pitch podcast of 2025, and enjoy opening day at the ballpark, guys. And we'll chat again next week. Thanks for being a part of the Payoff Pitch podcast, folks. Hope you enjoyed the show, and we will see you next week.